So outside of the show, I go over to the statehouse when they're in session, and I follow what happens there with committee hearings and legislation that's advancing. I also go to news conferences with the governor. There's one today over at Lincoln Land. There's obviously a lot going on with state government when they're in session. When they're not in session, there's still a lot going on with state government. So that's what I do full-time with the Center Square and Illinois Radio Network. And then I bring a lot of that here, and we have those conversations about the news of the day and the analysis and your reaction to it all here on WMAY with Springfield's Morning News. So appreciate everybody tuning in, watching, and really absorbing what I'm doing. Because listen, I don't have an agenda. My only agenda is to inform. That's what I'm here for. So I appreciate everybody chiming in and tuning in. But with, like, for instance, the Springfield City Council Roundup, I want to at times do a statehouse roundup of sorts. And we had a lot going on yesterday at the statehouse. Not just did we have the Supreme Court's hearing the Safety Act, which we talked about in detail earlier this morning. And if you get a chance, be sure to go check out the YouTube page, Bishop on Air, where you can see segmented clips of the show. They also had session. The House was in session today. And they had or yesterday. They're also in session today and Thursday. The Senate's not in session today or this week. Now, the Senate held a transportation committee. They were talking more about the Regional Transportation Authority during a hearing up in Chicago yesterday. But here in Springfield, they had the House in session and several House committees. One committee, the Elections Committee, was about an hour and a half or so. They talked in detail, in depth, about ranked choice voting, which I think is something that we're going to hear a lot more about. And if you're not familiar with ranked choice voting, it's essentially upending our system that we have in place of voting, and the person who gets the most votes wins, to bringing about ranked choice voting. And I think this is going to be more of a focus on municipal elections, which we've got one coming up next month. But even like up in Chicago, for instance, how would it work in Chicago? You had 9 candidates for a primary, and then you have a runoff where only the top 2 candidates get in, unless there was like a 50+1 of one of the 9 candidates that got that much. But regardless, ranked choice voting would change that. It would allow for you to rank your selection. So if there's 9 candidates, you could rank, I like this one number 1, I like this one number 2, I like this one number 3. Then they go up and tally all that. So they debated that. It was a subject matter only in the Ethics and Elections Committee for the House. So that's one thing they did. They also, other than being extremely late to all of their committee hearings yesterday afternoon, they also dealt with several things in the Child Care and Welfare Committee, where they talked about DCFS training. They tackled several bills. One measure they brought up was the issue of SNAP benefits. And State Representative Sue Shearer, she wanted to pass a resolution that would ultimately urge the federal government to provide SNAP benefits. That's the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, food assistance, taxpayer-funded food assistance. The SNAP program, Representative Shearer wants to urge the federal government to offer up SNAP to all foster families, regardless of income. That led to this back and forth between State Representative Steve Reich and State Representative Sue Shearer.
You have to be below the poverty level, and there's a whole litany of paperwork that you have to fill out to qualify.
So in your case here, by allowing it for anybody of any type of means, you're getting people who are all, so what you're saying is that there are already people who are eligible for SNAP benefits who become foster parents, and this is just part of the process that they would normally go through. But if someone of means was to become eligible for SNAP benefits, they're going to end up having to fulfill the same reporting requirements and inquiries as a person who is generally able for SNAP without being a foster parent. Is that what you're saying?
Not exactly, because the foster parent would not be eligible for SNAP under the regular guidelines. They would be eligible for SNAP because they're a foster parent. And then when a lot of foster parents have the child for 6 months. Well, when the 6 months is up, then they don't get the SNAP benefits anymore.
I realize that, but again, I have serious concerns about the need for a person who is of means to be able to do this without the provision of SNAP benefits to have to fulfill some sort of reporting requirements that would otherwise put them in a situation where they're giving information to people they would just practically not want to give that for, but they're being provided these benefits, and so they don't have a choice.
They don't have to take the benefits. It's an option. But this would make it an option that they currently don't have. And like I said, the social worker said she has seen many a family say, I would be a foster parent to this child across the street, but I just cannot afford it, and I don't qualify for SNAP. I'm just barely above the break-off point as it is.
Well, again, I think
I don't see where that's okay.
I think that giving it an open-ended qualification or eligibility, regardless of income, I think is a bridge too far.
So interesting to hear those arguments. Now, this is just a resolution. If it passes, it doesn't mean that even millionaires who are foster families are going to get SNAP benefits. It just means that the House of Representatives for the state of Illinois is urging the federal government to offer up these benefits. You can always chime in, 217-629-7970. That's the phone number here with Springfield's Morning News. Something else that happened yesterday might not get a whole lot of attention, but it's significant, and it's a Legislative Audit Commission resolution that advanced, and it makes the Auditor General do a performance audit of community integrated living arrangement homes. These are homes, CILAs, as they're called, that house adults with developmental disabilities. There's been a substantial amount of concern about these. Charlie Meyer, he's a downstate state rep. He's been raising concern about this for quite some time. And he has previously said that there are some serious problems that even first responders have brought up when it comes to the reports of wrongdoing at these homes. Here's Charlie Meyer from a few weeks ago.
The incidents of rape, sexual abuse, the neglect of residents, and even starvations that we can document in the state of Illinois.
And he's been pushing for more oversight and more eyeballs on this. Well, after a Legislative Audit Commission yesterday, the Legislative Audit Commission, which is a bipartisan group of lawmakers, they approved a resolution to have a performance audit of these CILAs.
The Legislative Audit Commission resolution number 164 calls for a performance audit of DHS's oversight of the Community Integrated Living Arrangement Program. This is sponsored by Representative Freese. Representative Freese, any remarks?
No, thank you for introducing that and explaining a bit about what it's going to cover. I think we all understand that there is a need for us to be looking closer into this, and looking forward to hearing the report that comes from it. Thank you.
So ultimately that passed, again, a bipartisan resolution out of the Legislative Audit Commission to tackle the issue of problems at community integrated living arrangement homes. So just a few of the things happening at the State House. All right, they, of course, also heard in extensive detail from the Illinois State Board of Education how much money they're going to be requesting from the state for the new school year. They heard a whole host of different debate about curriculum and so on. So there's always something going on at the Illinois State House, and way too much for us to cover in any little small segment. So I appreciate everybody for chiming in and tuning in.